today. We appreciate you coming to, I could probably use it.
Thank you all for coming today to our Porch Stories. We have two wonderful people from Whidbey Camano Land Trust who are going to speak to us today about conservation and what the Land Trust is doing. So I know I'm excited to learn about this. So enjoy. I'll let them introduce themselves so that I did not say their names incorrectly.
Excellent. Well, hi everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, it might take me some adjusting. I'm not used to a microphone, so forgive me. My name is McCare, and I am the Operations and Membership Specialist for the Whidbey Camano Land Trust, and this is my lovely coworker and emotional support person, Ashley Hieronymus. She's our Outreach and Education Specialist. And we are just so honored to be here today. Thank you to all of you for being here. I love this intimate group. This makes talking to you so much easier and so much more fun. And I also just want to extend the biggest thank you to the Island County Historical Museum for having us. I think that this Porch series is wonderful, and I'm just so excited to be a part of it. Selfishly, I'm extra excited because the museum is one of my most favorite places in the whole world. I'm not just saying that because we're here. It's between coming here to harass Patrick or visit with Vern, it's one of my most favorite places. And I love the Mammoth exhibit and the Indigenous Peoples exhibit. So I'll probably be running around there after this. I'm going to take a sip of water. My mouth dries out really fast. Okay. So I do hope all of you will forgive me, but I will have my notes in front of my face for most of it. I will ramble otherwise. I get very excited and I want to tell you all the things. I have 1,000 thoughts, and this is for the best for both of us, I promise. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Land Trust, who we are and what we do to protect wild spaces, and what we do to work towards having a healthier climate. Before we get into it, I would love to share a little bit of my background with all of you. So I was actually born and raised right here in Coopville. This is a place that is deeply, deeply entrenched in my soul, and I am so passionate about it, and I love this place so much. So I hope that that comes through when I'm talking to you all about it. We actually ended up, I left for about 8 years, and it was the hardest time in my life because this place is so important. And then I was finally able to convince my partner 2 years ago, we need to move back. And he's from Arlington, so he was really against it. He's not super used to small towns. And I was like, no, we need to. And he agrees to me to this day that it was the best decision we've ever made. So very, very thankful to be home. I joined the Land Trust staff in, about 3 years ago, actually. And it was kind of by surprise. My friend Beth at Bayleaf was up there, and she sent me the job posting from the Land Trust because she knew I was always saying I wanted to work somewhere that was helping to save the world. And somehow I got lucky enough to be interviewed and then get a job that I didn't apply for, but that was much better suited to what I was doing. So when I first saw the Land Trust, it was actually my first introduction to the Land Trust, and the first time I saw some of the properties that we protect, I fell madly in love with the organization. For 28 years, like many of you, I've watched this island change for sometimes the better, but in a lot of ways for the worse, and it was really hard to see. So when I saw the huge swaths of land that people like the Land Trust and other conservancies were protecting, I felt so much passion and pride and so much hope. So thank you again for having me. I'm very honored to be here and to be able to share that passion with you and to highlight the work that our organization has been able to do solely and thanks to community members like yourselves. Okay, so slowing myself down. I practice, I promise. Throughout this talk, I will be referring a number of times to climate change and climate resilience. And I would like to quickly define what I mean when I use these terms so that we're all working from a common understanding. The definition of climate change that the Land Trust refers to, in a nutshell, it's a big term and there's a lot that goes into it, but in a nutshell, is the impact of human activities on the planet that result in the production of greenhouse gases. These gases, like carbon dioxide, trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, resulting in melting ice sheets, which cause rising seas, which lead to extreme weather conditions like flooding and drought and high-intensity storms. So climate resilience, on the other hand, is the ability of these natural spaces, like forests and wetlands, to handle, adapt, and remain healthy in the face of all those climate threats. right? Okay, so those are our definitions, and that's what we're moving forward with. With that, let's go ahead and dive in. So a few things about the Land Trust. I'd love to kick us all off by saying that we did just celebrate 40 years of being a land trust, which is super exciting. Woo! It's been 40 years of our island communities rallying together to protect, restore, and celebrate these islands' critical habitats and wild spaces. And I want to thank all of you for getting us this far, and here's to 40 more and beyond, because we're going to do it. The Whidbey Camano Land Trust is a 501c3 nonprofit, and it was founded in 1984 by a volunteer board, and it was actually sustained that way for about 20 years before they hired their first ED. So they did a really remarkable job. We are community supported, and I really want to emphasize that because, like so many organizations here on the island, we could not do what we do without community members like you. And I don't mean that just monetarily, because I think that's the first thing everybody thinks of, but really I mean also by volunteering your time and helping us to steward these wild places. 95% of our operations are actually funded by private donors and members who believe in our mission. We are also non-regulatory and non-partisan, and that's a big one I want to emphasize too. We cannot protect your land unless you want us to. We would love to protect all the land, but you have to ask us and want us to. That's a big part. We work with willing landowners. We are a nationally accredited land trust, which means we follow the highest standards and practices of conservation work, and we have the gold seal to prove it. And we are currently comprised of about 18 staff members and 10 board members. And at this time, that's the biggest we've ever been, by the way. That's a big deal. At this time, we do have 2 staff positions open, one for stewardship and one for land protection. And we are always looking for committee members and people who are passionate about the things that we do. So if any of those are of interest to you, or you know somebody who would make a really good fit, come talk to me. I'd love to talk. All right. So I'm going to take another sip of water because I know myself and I'm going to start to dry out soon. Now, what are the mechanics of a land trust? What do we do and why do we do it? Well, first and foremost, we protect land, right? Got to protect land to be considered a land trust. And why do we protect it? Well, we protect land for a multitude of reasons, but all of it can be summed up pretty roughly to we protect it in order to protect our futures and to protect this planet. I also included our mission statement here. It's a mouthful, but it really drives the point home, so I will share it with all of you. Our mission is to protect, restore, and create access to forests, shorelines, farmlands, and other habitats in Island County and the Salish Sea for ecological and community resilience and the benefit of all living things. And a big part of that is protecting wild spaces, spaces which will remain untouched by human influence as much as possible. This is because while public access is truly critical for the health and well-being of humans, and while we provide that opportunity wherever is appropriate and as often as is appropriate, we do still need to maintain truly wild spaces to ensure the health and vitality of them long into the future. If we have human hands on everything, it can get a little bit messy, and that's just the reality. We operate by a set of conservation values which guide our approach to protecting land, and we protect land in 3 main ways. So, the first is fee land ownership. This is when we, the land trust, own a property outright. We are solely responsible for the restoration and management of these properties in perpetuity. And it is our job to make sure that they stay or become resilient and healthy. And many of these properties are better known to folks because a big part of them are actually open to the public. We have the resources to make them available to people and keep them stewarded thereafter. The next way we protect land is through conservation easements. And this is how, that's a good song. That's nice. The next way we protect land is through conservation easements, and this is how actually the majority of our forever wild properties are sustained. A conservation easement is a legal agreement between a landowner and the land trust that permanently limits uses on a property in order to enhance and protect a land's conservation values. And these are values like creating or bolstering wildlife corridors, supporting critical farmlands, or sustaining healthy bluffs, and so much more. Those are just a few to name. And the last, we have facilitated acquisition. And this one I'm still kind of figuring out, but I think it makes sense now. In facilitated acquisition projects, the land trust will assist another agency in protecting land. It's pretty basic. Many of you may be familiar with Saratoga Woods, and that's one that we worked on with Island County to protect. In our latest project, we had the huge honor of collaborating actually with the Tulalip tribes to facilitate the protection of 2 properties at Livingston Bay on Camano. And we really hope that we will have more opportunities because it was an incredible experience. All right. To date, the Land Trust has protected over 11,300 acres on Whidbey and Camano Islands. We use a conservation plan, which is updated every 6 years to ensure that we are prioritizing and utilizing the latest and best science available to us to guide and inform our work. This plan is developed through direct engagement not only with conservation scientists and natural resource experts, but with our community members as well. This engagement carves out a map of priority areas on the islands, which are the wild spaces with the greatest concentration of values that I had mentioned earlier. Evie's Reserve, which we all know and love, right in our own backyards, is one really great example of a priority area. With its high concentration of healthy farmlands, shorelines, forests, and scenic vistas, and climate-resilient lands, we prioritize protection in this area. Oh, we should have brought the priority map. That would have been a really cool one to share with everyone. Next time, next porch talk. So, once we identify these priority areas that I'm talking about, the conservation plan outlines things like how will we approach climate change? How will we engage with partnerships with tribal governments who are critical protectors of these islands? And how can we play a role in addressing the affordable housing crisis through partnerships with the city and town planners to proactively identify appropriate properties for housing? Partnerships are imperative in the work that we do, and I hope that that's what I highlighted there. Under our new strategic plan, which we actually just wrapped up last year, it was a long process. Under our new strategic plan, which encompasses not only the land protection and conservation plan that I was talking about, but all other areas of our organization, we have honed our focus in on mitigating the impacts of climate change on these islands. Together with our partners and community, we will protect the most resilient lands that remain and restore the lands that are in need to help Whidbey and Camano adapt to a changing world. Hi, Matt.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Phoebe, we're getting pretty close to the end of the Porch Story season.
We are, and I'm in the middle of a presentation right now, so I'll have to visit with you after, okay? If that's okay? It's good to see you, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're getting pretty close to the end of the season.
I think we are. Bye, Matt.
Probably there's
One
one
more.
more week of that.
You nailed it. She just said one more. All right, you guys, so that's the land protection part. Now let's talk about restoration. So, sorry, I've known it my whole life. Once we protect a piece of property, we create a restoration plan for it. If a property is held under a conservation easement, as I mentioned earlier, or was a facilitated project, the owners of the land can be provided with guidance from the Land Trust on how to restore their properties, and yearly monitoring visits will occur for all conservation easements to ensure that the terms of the easements are being upheld. But on our properties that the Land Trust owns outright, in-depth stewardship plans are put to work immediately. And boy, you should see our stewardship folks. I do want to give them a shout out because they truly are our boots on the ground and our hands on the earth, and they are incredible. I wish I had one of them here to talk about the stewardship aspect of things because they light up like the sun. Like every person on our stewardship team is so passionate. But I really love stewardship too, I just know way less about it, so I'll do my best. I'll try to do it justice. Restoration occurs so that we can give all ecosystems the highest chance of survival. And we do this in a number of ways, often all of these ways happening in tandem. Plantings and invasive species removal are one of the key aspects of restoring habitats. Our stewardship team, along with our incredible and valiant, and yes, I mean valiant stewardship volunteers, will hit the ground running by removing all noxious weeds and invasive species and quickly replacing them with native species that will foster a healthy ecosystem. Another method for restoration when we have a particularly unhealthy forest is actually prescribed thinning. So often properties on the islands are remnants of old timber harvests, and you can really tell that. They get so packedly dense with trees that the ecosystem actually suffocates, and no understory is able to thrive. This results in a critical lack of diversity, which leaves forests especially susceptible to disease, fire, and other environmental impacts. Thus, when it is appropriate, our conservation team will introduce a series of strategic forest thinnings to restore balance to the environment. But I will come back to that more in depth with an example shortly. One final method I want to highlight, because it is my personal favorite, and it's going to sound kind of funny, is actually prescribed burning. And on the surface, it seems so counterintuitive, but actually nothing makes a prairie happier or healthier than a strategic burn. And this is a method that was mastered by indigenous peoples since time immemorial, and it works. Controlled burns have significantly improved the health of prairies and stimulated native plant growth forever. And you know this just by looking at the golden paintbrush that we have out at our Admiralty Preserve. This was a native species that was nearly lost to the world, but it thrives in the soil at this prairie because we burn it every year or so, or whenever we can. Oh, and I have a big note here that I want to tell you guys about raptor perches. I got really excited about that because I watched a harrier go across the road and I was like, I have to tell everyone about the raptor perches.
Raptor what?
Raptor perches. Perches, I know.
Like buying?
No, so our stewardship people, great question, created these perches and stuck them out in our prairies. Perches.
Where are they perched?
Where they perch. Where they perch. And it was to try to address the issue of all of the vermin that were coming and eating the native plants that we were trying to foster in our nursery. And it's worked. We've seen a really huge turnout of raptors at our preserves and much less nibbling on our plants, which is great. All right, so without question, land conservation and stewardship work are inherent to fight the effects of climate change. But by intentionally using climate change as a lens with which to look at our work, with which to protect and maintain forever wild spaces, we are actually better able and better equipped to focus our time, energy, and resources on protecting these places and restoring the systems that will make our community most resilient. Through this process, we have learned how to anticipate changes and how any given property or project will play a role in minimizing these impacts. Okay, so I keep talking about all these conservation values and priority areas, and I don't know if this raises the question for anyone, but it may raise the question, how do we know we're protecting the right kind of lands? How do we know we're protecting lands that will actually make us climate resilient? And in general, the answer is prioritizing healthy, diverse, and connected natural systems. To illustrate this, I would like to dedicate the next portion of our time to highlighting a handful of some of our most critical systems, forests, wetlands, and shorelines. Properties that the Land Trust protects that feature these systems, and how what are we doing with these properties is helping to fight climate change on Whidbey and Camano Islands. But before I do that, I'm gonna get another sip of water. Because I'm so bad. I've been drinking water all day. I don't know what's wrong. Okay. First, we will look at forests. Forests are imperative to combating a changing climate because through photosynthesis, they store and absorb huge amounts of carbon dioxide. Leaves on trees are the mechanism that absorb that carbon dioxide, so you need a healthy forest with trees that have space to grow and to breathe. In an unhealthy and overcrowded forest, trees aren't able to spread out, which results in them collecting all of their leaves or needles at their very tops. Thus, less carbon can be absorbed, creating this really nasty shadowing effect that results in a lack of sunlight being able to reach the ground below. If there's no light, there's no understory. If there's no understory, there's no diversity. And no diversity results in a very vulnerable forest. We make sure the forests we protect can stay or become healthy, either by allowing them to continue their journey to become old growth, as so many of you know from so many of our beautiful old growth forests that are here on the island. But as I mentioned earlier, sometimes we have to sustainably manage forest thinning procedures to restore these spaces if they are overcrowded. And it sounds scary, I know, but one great example of that is actually something that just took place at one of our preserves, Trillium Community Forest. It was a once very brutally overpopulated forest, but it just underwent its second and final round of tree thinning in nearly 20 years. I think it was about a 20-year span that we were doing this.
Where is that?
This is in Freeland. So Trillium it's actually our
Trillium,
biggest.
okay.
Yeah, you know, it's 700 plus acres.
721.
721. Thank you, emotional support, Ashley.
You're welcome.
And it was pretty shocking to go out there the first time around. We did host tours for people so that the community could know what we were doing and what we were up to. But even a few months later, it has restored itself so much that it's kind of magical, and it's healthy and it's happy, and you can see it. So let's go ahead and look at wetlands. Unlike the mainland.
Can I ask a question before we move on?
Yeah, please.
When you thin the forest,
Yeah.
do you log or do you leave the fallen trees with it?
That's a great question. It's my understanding that we do a little bit of both. It's primarily logged, but there are huge amounts that you can't log. And so we will turn those into habitat, what are those called? Habitat blocks?
Nurse logs.
We label a lot of nurse logs, and it's really cute. Our stewardship people actually have built these really robust systems of habitat blocks that do really result in happy animals. So kind of a mix of both. Okay, so wetlands. Unlike the mainland, the islands don't have snow-fed rivers and streams, so we rely entirely on rainwater. And while wetlands don't directly provide drinking water for folks, they are often the only source of surface water available to wildlife throughout the dry summer months. Healthy wetlands are like a sponge. They soak up water during the wet season, then slowly release it through the dry season, which is, as we know, getting hotter and longer with climate change. And this is why wetlands are so crucial for sustaining wildlife. Everyone from beavers to birds to bats all depend on this habitat, as do amphibians, who are especially vulnerable to climate change because they breathe through their skin and it's very susceptible to pollution. Duguala Bay is my favorite example of this, and it's a great example of a forever wild preserve that people still get to enjoy. You just get to enjoy it from the outside. You're going to be on the outskirts for it, but you get to see what it is doing in action. And it's a fine example of the importance of wetlands. In 2016, this restoration project returned a diked farmland into a bustling estuary. Now this functioning ecosystem is soaking up carbon and is home to a multitude of species, including but not limited to our adorable precious western toads. And they're very cute. I think they just did a Whidbey News Times article on them. They're very small. Okay, and then finally we will take a look at shorelines and why this habitat is so crucial in our marine health. Island County has more than 200 miles of shoreline habitat that are the first line of defense against rising sea levels and surging storms. They act as a buffer, which is something that we are all very familiar with after the king tides that we all experienced. Healthy, undeveloped shorelines adapt to rising seas by absorbing wave and storm energy, eroding and revegetating naturally. This erosion releases sediment, which maintains habitats that support an abundance of marine ecology like kelp and eelgrass. This vegetation sustains the feeder fish, which sustains the salmon, sustains the seals, sustains the orcas. It's a very interconnected system. Plus, it makes our wonderful beaches that we love so much. At one of our latest and biggest projects, and perhaps you guys have heard about this, Keystone Farm and Forest Preserve, work has begun to dismantle the existing bulkhead that stretches along 300 feet of the shoreline there. Completion of this project will restore the bluff to its natural state, allowing it to continue through its processes and restoring vital nutrients to our shores and seas. And if you've ever done salmon fishing out there, you know why that's so important. These are just a few spaces we are focusing in on in an effort to combat climate change. I am sure that I am not alone in my fear and concern over our rapidly changing world. But there are so many things that really I see every day that give me hope for a better tomorrow. We just got back from a 3-day conference known as Northwest Land Camp. Ashley did not go to that, which was very sad. But there we were only one of many, and I mean many, land trusts and conservancies just from Washington and Oregon that have the same mission and the same commitment to the planet that we do. And that spans across the nation. What this told me was we are not alone in this, and we are fighting a battle with a bunch of people who care. I look at our community when I get really nervous. Conservation and preservation of wild places can transcend politics and opinions and bring groups of people together for the better. I, working especially at the Land Trust, have seen this in action more times than I can count, and I'm humbled by it every single time. It's a little corny, but I did say when we work together, all things are possible. But it's true. And I look at my nieces and my nephews, of which I have quite a few, and more on the way. And I see their excitement and their passion for wild things, and we're lucky because we are a very wildlife-oriented family. But in them and how excited they get for these wild things, I feel so much hope for the future because it's a future that's led by them. Jimmy?
Sorry.
No, you're good. That was a good break. I need that moment. This is good. So, kiddos like my nieces and nephews who I talked about are the reason we have been working to build such a robust outreach and education program here at the Land Trust. I'm looking at you, Ashley. We have a dedicated and passionate crew of staff and volunteers who are getting out into the community to engage with people about the planet, about these islands, and about the importance of protecting and nurturing them. I am most proud to talk about our school outreach program. In 2023, we hosted 13 school outreach events, 7 field trips that hosted 259 students, and 6 classroom presentations that reached out to 236 students. And that really is just the beginning. We are committed to continuing to grow these programs so that not just students, but community members of all backgrounds and of all ages have access to this knowledge and feel empowered and inspired to protect the earth. So I'm looking at this group and I feel like everything I'm about to say you already know, so just bear with me. My next section was what can we do as a community, and I feel like all of us really already are kind of doing it, but this will be good for the YouTubes. We're gonna talk about them anyway. So, to be a conservationist, to play an active role, can take the smallest actions. Number one, or one of the ones I love to point at, is planting native and removing non-native species. We know this one, we love this one, it's easy, but it is such a tangible way to see change that came from your own fingertips.
Where is the best place on the island to get natives?
My favorite is the Conservation District.
Okay.
I love the Conservation District, and they do a yearly plant sale that I will save up for and then spend too much money on. That's a really good one. I also will share with you all, I did declare war on the Himalayan blackberries in my backyard. I was devastated. I thought that I wrecked my entire yard and thought that I had done so much damage that I did good. But days later, already the snowberries and the Nootka rose were thriving. So it's all good now. My path is nowhere to be seen. I also always say, and this is a basic one, but leave it better than you found it. It can be so easy to walk past a piece of garbage. I almost did it today and then made myself stop and go get it. But for every piece that you pick up off of the road and off of our beaches, it's one less threat to wildlife, and it looks so good afterwards. Thank you. She's keeping me humble. She's keeping me on track. And the other thing is talk to people. People get inspired by your passion and what you care about, and we want to spread that love and that joy. Find out what other people are doing or aren't doing and see if you can get engaged with them. And finally, and this is an easy one, support your local land trusts and conservancies. As I said at the beginning of our talk, all of this, the land protection, the outreach, the stewardship, all of it is made possible by community support. We are a donor-supported nonprofit, which means that for every $1 that is donated to us by our community members, our staff is able to multiply that $1 by 13. I got that number right?
Really?
Now, this is done primarily through the acquisition of grants, which allow us to protect and restore land. Last year, we secured over $11.5 million in federal, state, and local grant dollars for land acquisition and restoration, as well as for stewardship and even some for education. Yeah, that's what I said. Wait till you get to this one. This year, we're applying for $13 million of land acquisition grants for some huge upcoming projects that we are so excited to share with you over time as it becomes appropriate. I'm not allowed to disclose all of them just yet. So you can also get involved by volunteering, and I don't mean that just with us, I mean any organization that you care about, and I think that we all probably do something very similar to that. But we have a wide array of volunteer opportunities from stewardship and outreach to education and office work, and if you have a spare hour or two every now and again, it is always a huge impact to us, and we are always grateful for the extra hands. I want to thank you all so much for being here today. This was something I was very nervous about doing, but I so appreciate you, and I appreciate the intimacy of this once again. thank you again to the Island County Historical Museum for having us. It really is such an honor. And I'm gonna do my best to answer your questions, but I might have to follow up with you on some of them. I have a lot of knowledge, but it's only 3 years worth, and I'm hoping by year 10 I'll know everything ever. But I need some time. Yes.
Shouldn't you warn people that restoration work can be habitat forming?
What do you mean? Oh, you mean in a good way? Yeah, I mean, sure.
What are you saying? What?
Restoration work can be habitat forming.
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute, I get it. That took me a second. That's funny. That's funny. I'm gonna tell that joke. I'm keeping that. I'm stealing that from you. I'm sorry. That's funny. I'm telling that to Kurt as soon as I get home. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate you. And thanks, Ashley, for being here.
We do have some of our newsletters, some brochures, and then if you are interested in kind of what's going on with us, you can sign up for our e-news, or if you're interested in volunteering, you can check the little box for that.
We're really good about not spamming your inboxes, I promise. You get one every once in a while.
But I want to know why I wasn't notified about this event on the 24th. So I can't come, but I want to make sure I know.
I was gonna say, you and
I
me.
want to mention also, in connection to this, on the 24th at Wicca, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. is a Whidbey Wildfire Conference.
Oh yes, that's why we couldn't go to that. We were very disappointed.
Our number picnic is the same day.
Yep.
We've had wildfires on the island.
Yep.
We know that wildfires are blazing around us, but
Brutally.
also in the Olympic Peninsula.
Yeah.
Wildfires in western Washington used to be a very, 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 very rare occurrence.
Yeah.
But with the drought and heat we're having, our trees are becoming increasingly susceptible.
Yeah. And that's
So what the-
susceptible is the
what-
big word there.
What the Land Trust is doing is hyper important.
Thank
We
you.
should all get behind the work.
Appreciate that.
Well,
Appreciate that.
feel free to come pick up